cose che dobbiamo stare un po' attenti, che dobbiamo prendere cura, è che noi abbiamo dei momenti particolari in cui
we have moments
siamo magari nel
in
Gompa,
which
riceviamo un insegnamento,
we receive
stiamo
teachings,
leggendo qualcosa,
we're
ci
reading something,
ispiriamo,
something
è
is
un
explained
momento
to
di
us,
in cui siamo rilassati.
in which we're relaxed.
Translation working? Ok. È un momento in cui siamo belli rilassati.
We're very
In questi
relaxed.
momenti
In these moments,
è come se avessimo una nostra
it's as if
chiarezza, è come
it's as
se
if we have
facciamo
our
le cose
clarity. We do
bene,
things well,
abbiamo la nostra
we have
direzione
our
e va tutto
direction,
bene.
everything's okay, we understand everything.
E poi dopo
And then
torniamo a un
afterwards,
certo punto alla
and,
nostra
and then we
quotidianità.
go back to our daily
A un
life.
certo punto
At a certain
torniamo lì
point, we
e ci
go
sono i vari
back,
problemini
and
da
there are daily
risolvere, ci
problems to
sono le varie
resolve,
cose da fare,
things to
ci sono
do,
gli oggetti di desiderio che non si
objects of
ottengono,
desire that
ci
we
sono gli
can't,
oggetti di avversione che non si
which we don't
allontanano,
obtain,
ci
they're objects
sono la
of
mancanza di
aversion,
tempo, i problemi di qua, quello di là,
lack of
eccetera,
time,
eccetera.
problems here, there, and
E quella
everywhere.
prospettiva del Dharma in
With,
qualche modo è rimasta da qualche parte.
and then the thing of Dharma is just kind of distant. We don't apply it.
Comune che le
It's very
nostre
common
quotidianità,
that in our daily life,
che praticamente si riassumono in
which practically
problemi da risolvere,
is made up of
cose che
problems to
vogliamo
resolve or
evitare
things that
e
we
cose
would
che
like to
vogliamo
avoid
ottenere,
and
e
things that we'd
goderci
like
le
to
cose che
obtain.
ci piacciono. Alla fine
And the
sono
things,
queste le cose
those are basically the things
intorno alla quale giriamo.
that basically sums up our life.
Solo che la nostra quotidianità in
But
qualche
in our daily
modo ha
life,
la
in some ways, it
tendenza
has the
di
tendency
assorbire tutte le
to
nostre
absorb
attenzioni,
all our life,
tutte le
all our
nostre
attention
energie,
and our
e
energy.
un processo che richiede un po' più di attenzione, di
But
analisi,
really,
di osservazione, di sviluppo di
the process
consapevolezza
requires
nello
awareness,
stesso processo di
analysis,
meditazione,
concentration, and so on.
è come se non trovassi tanto spazio per poter
It's as if we don't have time for this
e diventa
process of
abbastanza
Dhamma,
faticoso.
and it becomes tiring.
Ok? E qua
And here,
ci sono due punti
and there are two
fondamentali.
fundamental
Uno,
points. One
l'ho
is
appena
that
detto prima,
I said just
quando si
before,
dice
when we
Enzo
say,
Kamche Chikcha, esegui tutti gli yoga come
as
se fossero
Geshe
uno
Chawa
solo.
said,
E l'altro,
follow all the
la
yogas as if they were
distinzione
only
che viene
one.
data,
And then the other thing is the distinction that's given
tutte le
to
pratiche del Tantra,
all the
quando si dice che
Tantra
dobbiamo fare
practices
la
when it says that we
pratica,
have to
il
do,
sentiero, la pratica si divide fra
the path is divided
Tun e
into
Tun
Tun
Samghineljo,
and Tunsagimetsu.
yoga,
The yoga
durante le sezioni di
during the
meditazione e
sessions
fra le
of
sessioni di
meditations,
meditazione.
and then between the
In realtà
meditation
la parola Tun vuol dire sessione, perciò
sessions. So that is how Tantra is divided
noi
up.
abbiamo
And then we have
il periodo che siamo
the
qua al
period
centro,
in
che
which we're
facciamo
here in
il
the center.
ritiro,
We
meditiamo,
do
che seguiamo gli insegnamenti,
retreats,
che
we
siamo in un
meditate,
contesto protetto,
we're in a protected
protetto inteso che
context,
siamo lontani
in
dalle
that
nostre
we're a long way
menate
from our
abituali. Chi vive qua
hang-ups and head
costantemente
problems
in
that we
un
normally
ambiente
have.
molto protetto, perché è il luogo in cui proietta le proprie menate.
Well, not
Però
that
chi
protected because they come here too.
non è
But
qua costantemente
for
proietta
people
le
who
problematiche da un'altra parte, no?
But for people who don't come here often,
Questa è una
project
cosa
their
che io
problems
ho visto
maybe elsewhere.
tantissime
I've
volte.
seen
È
this.
quasi ilario in qualche modo,
eh,
non è proprio ilario, però è quasi.
I've seen this so many times. It's
Che uno
even funny
è in un
sometimes.
posto e dice, ah, che
But
bello che qua, che
somebody
meraviglioso,
comes to
che di
this
qua, che di là.
place and
Là
says
mi
how
faccio
lovely it
tutto il
is.
mio lavoro, perché a casa, perché di qua, dove
Because
stai
at
tu?
home where I live, this, that, and the other
Vieni a
happens.
vivere qui.
Comes to live here.
Il problema
The
vero
problem,
è
the
che
real
tu
problem
vieni a
is
vivere qui
that you come and
ovunque
live
vai,
here or wherever you
chiunque
go.
di noi, e noi veniamo a vivere in un luogo,
And we go
portiamo
and
noi
live in
stessi insieme.
the problem is when we go to live in another place, we have to take ourselves
Nel
with us.
portare noi stessi
And bringing
insieme,
ourselves with
portiamo
us
le nostre
means
paure,
bringing
le
our
nostre
fears,
insoddisfazioni, i
dissatisfactions,
nostri rancori, la nostra
resentments,
rabbia,
anger,
la nostra insoddisfazione,
dissatisfaction,
eccetera,
and so on.
e da qualche parte li dobbiamo proiettare.
And we have to project these on something. Therefore,
Io diverse volte quando c'è qualcuno
many
che sta
times somebody
tornando a
says,
vivere ad
comes here,
Albagnano,
when somebody's
io
come here to live,
stare
I've always said, be
attento,
careful,
perché tu vuoi venire a vivere in paradiso,
because you want to come and live in
rischi di
paradise,
trasformare il tuo paradiso in inferno.
but you may
Non
transform your
perché il
paradise
paradiso a un
into
certo punto
hell.
si trasforma in
Not
inferno,
because the paradise
ma
transforms into
perché
hell, because
adesso tu hai
you
tutto
have
il luogo dove proiettare
all
tutte
the
le
place
tue
to
cose.
project your
A un
head
certo
problems
punto tutto
onto.
questo si proietterà qui.
And if you're here, you project on here. That's not to say that that you shouldn't come and live here, but the fact is wherever we go, we bring our problems with us. Anyway, the fact is that when we finish, we come to the end of teachings, it's very important. It's very important to see how we follow on and how we apply these into our daily life to achieve balance and to practice in other contexts. And the error that's often made is a sensation, the habit that it manifests as a sensation. I don't mean in terms of pleasure, displeasure, but it's an internal perception in which there's the mundane life, and then there's practice, the spiritual practice which is separated. That is not the case. The practice in the Gompa, in teachings, in sacred texts, in meditation, in mantras, in so many things, in pilgrimages, in sacred places, and also in the way we work, go to work, interact with friends, look after our house, our health, and everything that we have to do in our daily life. When we say follow every yoga as if it were just one, every yoga, the yoga of waking up, of sleeping, of eating, of working, and so on. Everything, all our activities in our life are called in this context yoga. They're activities which are done with excellence, and they're done as if they were one. And what does that mean? It means our main yoga is the transformation of our mind towards a virtuous direction. In the context of these teachings of Lord Jung, it's called mind training, which means training ourselves in compassion, love, and wisdom, eliminating selfishness and ignorance. But these days, past few days, we were talking about 51 mental factors and to observe our mind, to direct our mind, and to embrace ourselves, and to direct ourselves towards what we want to become. In this process, where do we have to put this in practice? In every moment of our lives. Therefore, rather than saying, oh God, now I have to do this, that, and the other, the important thing is to, wow, what a wonderful opportunity I've got. Here I can practice patience, and look, here I can practice constancy. We were talking a few days ago, a fundamental characteristic for our spiritual path, which is the joyful effort, which means putting effort into something that's positive or even necessary, but not easy. And the interesting thing of joyful effort is that as long as there's effort, it doesn't depend. It depends on the cause and the aspiration and the base, with the basis of faith, as we've seen in the past few days. But the force, it's actually also a habit. If I'm used to not get dragged along, distracted, if I'm used to preparing myself to what I have to confront in my life, and to recognize my own resources. These are the various kinds of various joyful efforts that we've seen, such as armor, for example, which entails saying, I can do it, I can do it. The joyful effort of enthusiasm in what we do. And then imagining as preparation the worst that could happen. But in our daily lives, there are so many things that we know which would be good to do, but then we don't have much, we don't really want to do it. But when we manage to maintain the effort and to familiarize us with the joyful effort, it can be actually the most banal things. For example, clean the house, go to work, to do whatever we have to do in daily life. This helps us to develop a fundamental characteristic in our spiritual path, which is effort. Our ability to put energy into that which is important, necessary, positive, but not necessarily easy. And this is just an example of our daily life. But it's essential not to live our spiritual life and our daily life as two separate things. For example, here I have my, I do my spiritual practice in the morning and the evening. I do all the recitations and meditation. And the rest of the time I work and do what I have to do. That's okay. It's obvious. It's very good that you dedicate time to sitting down and meditating, etc. But the practice is in every moment of our lives. And it's there, exactly there, interaction with the other, that we should observe how we interact. It's exactly when desire rises, we see how we react. And when we're in front of an object of aversion, we see how we react. These are fantastic moments to observe. They're things which are apparently very banal and mundane, but they're actually very precious to observe ourselves. And this, I know in some way we have the tendency to get bored. We want new things, different things. But if we open our eyes well and we look with attention, we'll see that in our life there's nothing to get bored with in our lives. Because that which seems always unchanging is never the same. Even that things which, oh, I have to do this, oh, I don't like doing this. For example, there is, and it's a bit like a game for me in some way, where one sees things that seem very mundane, uninteresting, but in some way you manage to see the meaning in it. The game is not to fall into anger, impatience, indifference towards others. We've seen in the 51 mental factors so many behaviors that we should abandon. And in our daily life, and there's a game of being stable, but sometimes we lose our balance, we fall, but it's really important, first of all, not to make the distinction between daily life and spiritual life. Our spiritual path is located in every situation, in every minute and place we find ourselves in. It's not that there are more places that are more spiritual than others. What exists, there are attitudes that are more spiritual than others. I remember now, in the 90s, at a certain point, Lama Michel, he brought self-healing to the most unlikely places. So once was in a heavy metal concert. This was one of the very unlikely and probable places where he brought self-healing. I can't explain to you, it's just off the charts. And then another place was in a discotheque at night, and there, and you can imagine what happened. They stopped the music at some point, And they started playing self-healing in different places of the situation. And Lama Ganchen showed the practice in the discotheque. Just crazy stuff. But it was a way to show that it doesn't matter where the place is. Not what you do, but how you do it. Because there are so many things that can seem very mundane in our daily lives that seem to be totally not special. But what counts in those situations is how we do these things. What is the internal attitude I have? And it's there that we must cultivate respect, gratitude, love, patience. And it's exactly there what we must train ourselves not to be attached to our comfort zone, which means a lot. Not to be, which means it's similar to effort, but it's also a form of patience. Patience has two characteristics. One is that means not to react with aggression in front of an object of anger. That's the most classic meaning. And the other form of patience is when we don't allow ourselves to get bogged down, to dragged down by difficulties, and not to be frightened of getting out of our comfort zone. And through this, I maintain the same direction. I maintain my direction, my intention, even when I'm out of my comfort zone. And this is a form of patience, which is fundamental. Otherwise, we embark in a certain direction. We say, oh, this is nice. And at a certain point, we get out of our comfort zone. What happens? Oh, no, I can't do it. Oh, I've changed my mind. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, it's too difficult. And one of the things Trichan Rinpoche said in one of his texts is the importance of not being afraid of suffering. And Atisha, well, Atisha said it before Trichan Rinpoche. He said even it's the same mental continuum. Okay, Atisha, master of the 11th century, said, don't be afraid of suffering. But a disciple said, if I'm not afraid of suffering, I'll suffer more. I won't try to avoid it, said one of his disciples. Atisha said, no. Because if you're afraid of suffering, you'll suffer even more. You'll suffer for the fear of suffering more than the suffering itself. You can just see. Do we spend more time suffering for the present or the future? No, the future. We're frightened of the idea of suffering rather than suffering itself. These are all little things which we can make up our daily life. And one of the important things is not to be frightened of getting out of your comfort zone. An example I always give is the example of the boy who used to have to bring water. So all the boys in the monastery have to learn this. There are things in our daily life which, when we do them, it seems that we're not practicing. Maybe you don't have the chance to sit meditating with crossed leg all day. But there are infinite ways of practicing Dhamma. And there are two ways of doing it. One, which are complementary. One is during the sessions when we listen, we read, and to meditate,
e così via.
and so on.
Quindi è il momento formale della
That's,
pratica,
let's say, the
questo.
formal moment
E poi
of practicing.
sono i momenti che
And
vengono
then
detti
there are
fra
the
le
moments
sessioni
which are
in
between the
tibetano
sessions
Tunsam.
in Tibetan
Questi sono
Tunsang.
momenti in cui uno
These
sta
are moments in
mangiando,
which
dormendo, parlando,
we
lavorando,
eat,
interagisce
sleep,
con gli
walk,
altri,
interact with
eccetera,
others,
eccetera.
etc.
Ossia la nostra vita di tutti i giorni.
Our daily life.
E tutti e due vengono
And both
dati
of them
la stessa
are given
importanza.
the same weight, the same importance,
Hanno lo stesso livello di importanza nella nostra pratica.
same importance.
E perciò come
Therefore,
noi
how
pratichiamo
we
fuori dalle
practice
sessioni
out of
formali è
the
estremamente
sessions is
importante.
extremely important.
E una delle modalità
And one of the
è
ways
quella di
is to
mantenere durante la
maintain
nostra vita di tutti i
during our
giorni
daily
tutto
lives,
quello che noi facciamo,
regardless of what
no?
we're doing,
Prendendo spunto da questi giorni precedenti che abbiamo visto,
taking,
fattori mentali e così via,
looking at the
è
what
di
we've been looking at, the
mantenere la nostra
51 mental
consapevolezza,
factors, is to maintain our
la
awareness,
vigilanza,
our vigilance,
cosa penso, come
what I'm
agisco, come
thinking,
parlo, eccetera,
how I'm
e
speaking,
mantenere
and to
anche
maintain
la
also
nostra memoria consapevole, ossia la direzione
mindful
della nostra
recollection,
mente, come voglio essere,
and to bear in mind always, how do I want to be?
che caratteristiche voglio sviluppare.
What characteristic do I want to develop?
E un consiglio
Characteristics.
è di non mettere
And
tutto
one,
insieme in una sola volta.
and my advice is
Quello
not
è
to
troppo
put
e alla fine
all
non
of
ce
them
la
together
facciamo, ma è prendere, per
immediately,
esempio, farlo a settimane.
but let's say just take one
Prendere e dire ok, questa
a
settimana
week. Let's say this
voglio
week I want
allenarmi
to train myself
nel non
in
essere indifferente
in not
dinanzi
being
agli altri.
indifferent towards other people.
E quindi
And therefore,
sto attento, mi
I'm
ricordo ogni momento che
careful
non devo essere indifferente dinanzi
every
agli
moment,
altri.
and I remind myself that I mustn't be
Quando
indifferent
incontro
towards others.
qualcuno,
When I meet someone,
attenzione,
attention,
vedere, accorgersi
see,
della presenza dell'altro, dare
be
importanza
aware of
all'altro.
the presence of the others,
Io vado ad allenarmi alla
and
non
I train
violenza,
myself.
intesa come non indifferenza
I train myself
dinanzi alla
in
sofferenza dell'altro.
non-violence in terms of
Posso
non-indifference
scegliere,
towards
no,
the others.
questa settimana io
I
voglio
choose this week, I want
allenarmi,
to train
voglio
myself,
praticare
I want to practice
principalmente la
principally
generosità.
generosity.
Quindi quella
Therefore,
settimana
that sitting in that week,
consapevolezza, vigilanza su come
awareness
vado
and
a
vigilance
condividere
on
quello
how
che ho con gli altri,
I divide what I have with
dal
others,
sorriso ai
with a smile,
consigli,
with
alla
advice,
condivisione materiale,
with sharing,
eccetera,
and so on.
Poi
And
vado a
then,
praticare la
and then I
pazienza,
practice
lo
patience,
sforzo, la
effort,
concentrazione, la
concentration,
presenza,
presence.
tantissime
There are
cose
so
che
many
possiamo
things that we can do.
Però è
But
importante
the
per
important
te
thing is to
riportarlo alla nostra vita di tutti i giorni,
bring it back to our daily life
riportarlo con consapevolezza
with
alla vita di
awareness
tutti i giorni.
in our daily life.
E una delle prime
And
cose
one
che
of the
diventa
first things that
importante,
becomes important
un
is
po' anche
it's a bit,
conclusione un po' di
it's a,
questi giorni dei 50
let's say it's
fattori
kind of a
mentali,
conclusion to the course we've just done
è
on 51 mental factors,
applicare
is
nella
to
nostra vita di tutti i
apply
giorni la consapevolezza
to our daily lives the
del
awareness
nostro comportamento
of our
fisico,
behavior,
verbale e poi in fondo mentale,
physical, verbal, and mental,
senza entrare in un
without
processo
getting
di
into
giustificare noi stessi.
the process
Sì,
of
ero di
justification,
qua o di là,
or
no,
this, that.
semplicemente osservare,
Just very simply to
osservare
observe
e vedere.
and to see.
Quindi è
And
piano
therefore,
piano,
and
prima
slowly,
si osserva,
we
si
observe,
riconosce,
we recognize,
uno si accorge,
we
diventa consapevole
notice, we
del
become
proprio
aware,
modo di agire,
our way
interagire, di
of
parlare,
talking,
pensare
interacting,
le
to
proprie
think,
emozioni, finché arriva a avere
our own emotions,
consapevolezza delle proprie emozioni
and
anche a livello più sottile.
and also until we get to being
Questo in
aware
se
of
stesso
our emotions on a
già
very
un'esercizio
subtle, on a subtle level.
iperimportante,
This is
meraviglioso.
hyper important.
E qualcuno mi direbbe, però alla
Someone
fine
might say,
questo uno non si riposa mai, deve sempre star
someone might say,
praticando.
well, in that way you never rest. Actually, yeah, that's true.
Perché noi non abbiamo la
Because we
scelta
don't have the choice
se
if
trasformare
to
la nostra mente, il
transform
nostro essere,
our
o non
being or
trasformarlo.
mind or not. Doesn't exist, this choice.
Ricordiamoci
Let's
questo
remember
concetto
this
fondamentale,
concept, this fundamental
ovunque
concept
ci
that
sia interazione,
wherever there's
inevitabilmente
interaction,
ci sarà
inevitably there will be
trasformazione.
transformation.
E il modo in cui io
It's the way
interagisco,
I
io mi
interact.
trasformo.
will determine how I transform. It's not that I'm going to practice Dharma, I'm going to put effort into improve my effort into my qualities. And then when I don't do it, there's a kind of pause. And then I go back to it. No, it doesn't work that way. When I'm not doing this, so if you don't do it while you're reacting and interacting, then you'll develop another way. So for this, we need constancy. It's here that we grow, really. When there's another very nice thing, so when we read books, listen to teachings, and then to apply this to daily life, there are moments in which we find ourselves in apparently banal situation, let's just say, nothing special, but at a certain point, we put together bits of the puzzle, and then we understand this and that. It's really nice when this happens. It's a very nice experience because when we have an experience, it works within us. When we try to apply something, then it manifests. It's really something very special. Therefore, that's what I want to ask you. The essence I want to say is that we finished this moment, this period. We had 10 days at the center here on teachings, practice, with Lama Caroline, with me, and with the monks. Okay, but I should also say that Dharma practice never stop here. But many of us, not, let's say all of us, we all have our daily life, which means that we're not in the teachings every day. We have many things to do. Let's remember to bring Dharma into our daily lives. That's what I wanted to remind you. Let's practice all the yogas as if each one was the only one. Now I would like to conclude here because today I have an appointment at somewhere. I have minutes calculated precisely to be able to arrive in time, so I'm not going to speak too long today. So let's just conclude here. Let's make our dedications.
Drove munsela takto ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang drame cheki pela long che ching sadan lamge yente rabzo ne dorje change kopa nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke chinge lop kuncho sumke ngodrubutso kuncho sumke trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Sem che sutru, che lam tutru, lam la farce, mi yomarshu.
May the mind become Dharma.
Possa la mente diventare il Dharma.
May the mind become Dharma.
Possa il Dharma diventare il sentiero.
May the Dharma become the path.
Possa il sentiero essere
May the path become free of interferences.
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences.
Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. And before Lama didn't translate the verse of auspiciousness, at dawn dusk, at night, or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.